Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tony, and if you follow me you know that we're right in the middle of building another amazing kit from Armortek. It is the 1:6 scale full metal Series 1 Land Rover, and I think it's really starting to take shape and I'm loving how it looks. Really enjoying this build so far. And when we left off last time, we had built and assembled the rear flatbed, the tailgate, and done all the detailing and what have you on this, and we also tested the lights to make sure that they were still working on the back. Today's session is all about this sort of subfloor here, this area here, but there's a lot of thinking to do before you go ahead and do this. And as I've said before, if you're buying one of these, please, if you can, make sure you order the lighting kit and the option kit for the power and the motion, because the lighting kit needs to be put in, I think, before the subfloor, because now I need to think about how I get these cables dressed down underneath the floor, and then reconnect them all up somewhere underneath the chassis. And at the same time, when we assemble this subfloor part, there's the main bench here, and there's a hinged flap which I can only assume is designed for the battery, because it's about the right size for the battery to pass through. But then we have to think about how we retain the battery. So there's a lot of thinking to do, and initially when you look at the instructions it looks quite straightforward, but I think it's quite complex, and I think it needs to be very carefully thought out. So I'm going to show you each and every step of how I go about doing this, and in a moment I will reset the camera and we'll get started. So let's just talk about some of the things that we need to consider ahead of getting stuck into this. Now with the kit, this is the main part that forms the, if you like, where the seats will be bolted or glued in place. I'm guessing they're going to be glued. There's a couple of things. So in the kit itself there's a couple of little flat plates that I don't know if you can see these on the back there. One here and one here, and they ask you to Loctite these in and glue them in, and that's only because when you position this flap, which is secured with a couple of hinges, it's got something to shut against. So that's that. But when I was looking at this, I'm thinking this has got to be for the battery, must be, whichever way I decide to go in here. But I need to think about how I retain the battery, because I don't want it just sitting on top of the chassis. So I've just put a piece of angle here. I've got a leftover piece of angle left over from when I build the tanks and secure and build up like the shelf, if you like, inside the hull of the tanks. So this is just a piece of angle, which is a 20mm by 10mm angle. If you've got something better, please use that, but I'm going to use this. Now I've glued this into position, and the idea is that that is going to help secure the battery in position, like so. The glue is still going off, so I don't want to put too much pressure on that. So that was that. So that's relatively straightforward. Then of course we've got the fuel tank, which is this thing here, and I think it goes in something like that. I think it just gets glued into position like that. Now looking at my research books, this would typically be galvanized, so I'm going to have to paint and galvanize this ahead of putting it on the floor. And then we've got the two main floor panels, which basically go onto this part here, like so, and these then sit within the bulkhead of the main of the main Land Rover. However, just out of camera shot, and I will show you this, you've got the cable that goes to the day running lights for, which are basically presented into the back of the bulkhead. And so what I've done here, thinking ahead, hopefully I've done the right thing, I've actually filed down a little notch out of each side of these, that I'm going to dress the cable down the bulkhead and through this point here. I don't know if you can see these little notches can you see that on the camera? Hopefully you can. And that's what I'm going to use for pulling the cables through and dressing them to pull them underneath. I mean, they talk about putting the cable through the seat, but I'm not sure whether I want to do that. So I'm planning ahead and working out, giving me the option to be able to put it underneath the floor and then somehow tie it or cable tie it to the chassis. So we'll get started in a moment. I just want to talk through that. I'm going to let this glue go off a bit longer, and then we'll start by putting the simple job of putting this little hinge flap on. Right, so we're going to start with the flap, which I'm going to call the battery flap. And these are these two hinges that you get with the kit, but be mindful, I'm going to say this all the time, these are brass hinges and it's very soft brass, so be very careful how you handle these, because they're not very forgiving. They're very fragile, or somewhat fragile. Now these are secured into place with a M2.5 gauge 5mm butt fixing, and I'm definitely going to be using thread locker. But when I install these, I never tighten them up too much, because they just you don't want them too tight. You want a bit of play on them, because you don't want this to hinge binding. So just that's that first one in. Get this one in, and I really am thinking all the time about how to put what the next part of this build is going to be, as far as this floor sub assembly and getting the lighting cabling sorted. So we're looking forward to that, but at the same time, still haven't fully decided how that's going to pan out. So I'm just going to tighten those up a little bit more, not too much. Want a bit of play on that, and I'm just going to check that will perfectly align, just making sure that the holes are aligned. So just crack on now and do the next one. I just want to say thanks again to all of you guys that are subscribed to my channel. It's amazing, and it really still blows me away with the support I get for what I do here, and also all the helpful comments I get, some of the tips as well from you guys. Really, and everything's welcome, by the way. I never what I'm saying is I would always welcome, I should say, comments and helpful tips, and also big thanks to Oz out there. You sent me some great pictures of a Series 1 from a show you went to recently. I love that sort of community feel I have to my channel, so it goes a long way, that, and really do appreciate it. And what's almost there now. And that's just tight enough, not too tight. So just going to test fit that. Perfect. So I'm just looking to make sure that these holes are aligned in here, so when I come to fix these butt fixings in, they're perfectly aligned, and that tells me that this flap is going to operate as expected. So I'll just go and get the rest of the fixings, and I'll be straight back. Well, that's the fixings found. And now just gonna hold that underneath like that, just holding the flap down with my fingers, just to get that first one in loosely, and I'll do one this side, and that makes life a little bit easier. And here we go, fingers and thumbs again. And I'm going to reiterate it again. I absolutely think that, oops, the glue's not fully cured there. That'll be schoolboy error. I have to put a clamp on that, I think. Just keen to get this going. What was I going to say? Yeah, this is, again, I say it all the time. This is another reason why you should get all the key. I mean, I haven't got the sound or audio option kit yet, because I think I can put that in last knock-ins. But I don't see how you could do this without having the option pack and the battery and everything else, so you can crack on and fit, make sure everything fits. And imagine having built your static model and then having to go back and try and work out all the where everything's going to go. I think that would be a nightmare. So I know I'm banged on about it, but it's only to try and help you. Hopefully that message has got through loud and clear. For the sake of me repeating myself all the time, so apologies for that. So and that's it. That's the flap in. So that's it, fitting perfectly. Now the next part for me is to consider whether I put these on first or go and glue this together and galvanize this. I'm going to put some thought to that and I'll be straight back. Right, so decision made. I'm actually going to stick this or glue this into this first so that can go off. I'm quite confident that that's the right way to go around it. So I'm going to glue along this edge here. I'm also going to glue this here and this side here, and I think possibly this edge here for now. Now this will go in like so, putting the ridge, sitting the actual ridge of the 3D printed edge on top of the metal casing. Now what I've got to make sure is that when I put this in, I don't know if you can see this, there's a hole there, so that just needs to be pushed over so I can get the fixing through. It's a bit, yeah, that's better. Just need to make sure there's enough room for that fixing to get through there, but at the same time I want this to look straight and right. It's not as simple as that, you know. Push that over just a tad more. Might put a clamp on that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, clamp is required on that, I think. While that goes off, I'm saying we'll crack on and do this floor, assemble all this floor. Now this is obviously going to be painted in the RAF blue, whereas this is going to be galvanized. So this, I need this to go off. Yeah, it's not that, it looks simple, but it's actually, to get it looking right, it takes a little bit of work. And I think what I might do actually, when that is dry, when the glue is cured, I might actually just go through with a drill and just clean that edge up, because it's sitting, to get it looking right on this edge here, it covers the hole slightly. I'm not happy with that, so I will definitely put a drill through that, I think. Now we will clamp that, and instead of fiddling around with it, I'm going to leave it alone. So we'll pop that out of the way, and then what we're going to do now is to start getting assembling this floor onto the main, this part here. It's the other way around. And then all very loosely, and then there's this sort of the gear shift unit that goes over the top of that. Should be that side, I guess. And there's a few other parts that we need to get assembled onto this before we paint it. Right, so ahead of starting the flooring itself, just wanted to show you that this little gear shift housing here, and this is your gear shift itself. It's the mount that passes through there. This is a beautifully engineered little piece of aluminium, and it's secured on the back with this big old M6 nut. So when you get your kit initially and you see a bag of bits and pieces and nuts and fixings, and you see this one random 6mm M6 nut, I thought it was a mistake and it just gone in there by accident, but no, this is actually required. This is the biggest nut in the kit, and it's required to go on the back of that. So there's a reason for everything that Armortek do. And then this little gear stick sort of simply glues or passes through that and it gets glued into position. But I'm not going to do that because this is going to be painted black, whereas this is going to be I think I'm going to be doing this in the RAF blue, or I might even pick this up in black as well. But I'm going to get this in here now. And also what I'm going to do is, while I've got the glue out, I'm going to just glue the little knob on the end of the gear stick, so that can be all set when it comes to painting. and that just simply pops on over the top of that. Just wipe the excess glue off. I'm just going to pop that in my tray out of the way for the time being, and then let's do this. I'm just going to put a little dab of glue on this just to stop it from spinning. Pop that lid back on there. Pop that into position and just spin that nut on. Hopefully. Why is it everything so awkward when the camera's on? Here we go. Right. No harm done. Just going to turn that round so it's nice and square. And the glue will do its job as well. That's it, just doing that by eye. So that's in. So that's all we need to do with that. Now we'll go off and get the fixings for this. Right, so now we're going to attempt to start doing the floor panels. It's fairly obvious which side goes where. Obviously these will fit and slot into the bulkhead. Now these are fixed with the same M2.5 5mm butt fixings. And I'm going to keep these fairly loose for now. So I'm just going to put a little bit of thread locker on the edge of that. And then the reason why I want to keep it fairly loose, I want to make sure I can actually fit this in without too much aggravation onto the bulkhead itself. And once I'm happy with that, then I'll tighten everything up. So like even doing this, it looks as if I'm almost done with this, but it's not. You know, we've got a way to go yet. It's mad to think we've still got all the doors to do, the windshield, and from what I understand, that's quite tricky. And there's a lot of painting scenarios to think about. Now with this one, this particular one here, these two holes here are going to be used to secure the fuel can or the fuel tank. So I'm not going to put any fixings in there just yet. I'm just going to put one fixing in this side, this one here. So let's load up the fixing first. And hold it into place. Spin that nut on, and let's just hand tight for now. Now we're going to go, I'm just going to, off camera, look at that, there you go, just what it's my first proper cock up on camera. I'm not going to edit this out, put it the wrong way around. So that goes on that side. Warts and all again. I am making a well, it's my son's idea, not mine. I am making a bloopers video. I'm not sure when he's gonna do that. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how I'm gonna get that onto YouTube because I won't lie to you. There's a little bit of colourful language used sometimes. Anyway, that's how it should be. So sorry about that. Now I'll tell you what, we will go ahead and install this into position again quite loosely. In fact, no, I think I'll probably put these in fairly tight. And you'll notice that there's a slot cut out here, and I think that's for the four-wheel drive gear shift, which is obviously a static thing. It doesn't actually do anything. It's just for scaling and detailing. But that's why that's designed like that. And I'm just checking that these all kind of line up, and they do. So let's crack on with that. We might as well put these in. And then what I'll do is I'll get the Land Rover off its stand and see if we can actually slot this into place, and then if it all fits in beautifully, we can then start thinking about getting everything painted ahead of it going in. So I'm tempted to put these in tight. I might regret that, but we'll see. There's no reason you won't go in that hole. However, it's sometimes you just get one or two fixings that are just stubborn. There you go. It's the painting of this is what that's sort of concerning me, and what parts to paint. And I think inevitably there is going to be some fixings that are put in afterwards, like the ones that secure it along the back, for instance. These fixings here, they're going to have to be spot painted, because that's how I'm not going to paint this in situ. And how I do that is I use the same spray can, and I just spray it into a dish, and then that allows me to then pick it up on my brush and then spot paint the fixings that I've missed, or not missed, but I couldn't paint at the time. It's the last one of those. I'm not going to put this on, install it permanently. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, it's all a little, just doesn't look right. Might need a bit of playing around with, but initially what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this, test fit it into the Land Rover and see how we crack on. So I'll get the Land Rover off its stand, and then we'll take it from there. Right, so that's the Land Rover off its stand. Now I'm going to gingerly see if this fits without too much aggravation. And you remember I mentioned about these notches I took out either side. This is for the cable that you can now see coming from the day running lights, or the little running lights on the bulkhead. So that's my idea, is that sits, that goes in, well, that's actually gone in quite nicely, and these come down here. And what I'm going to do with these, I think, is I'm either going to shrink wrap some black rubber around them, so it takes your eye off it, or even both. Gently just move that down, and then try and get it to go inside the bulkhead, and then feed through the notch, and then underneath the Land Rover, and then connect everything up so that the connector block is sitting around about here, so I can get to it if I need to. Now that's gone in really, really well. A couple of things to be mindful of. There's two holes. I'm not sure if you can see these in the camera. There's one and two. Now this is for the accelerator and brake pedals. They need to be aligned perfectly with the two holes in the bulkhead. And there's another, that could be, I wonder if that's the accelerator pedal. There's three pedals. Two come out the floor, one comes out the bulkhead. But anyway, you need to make sure these are aligned perfectly. I can see that the holes, yes, they're aligned. I'm happy with that. So I'm happy with the fit. It's gone in better than I thought. And then you've got the transmission block, which should slide. Yes, it does. Look at that. I mean, that does get bolted into the bulkhead. That's going to be painted in the blue. All of this will be painted blue, apart from the sort of the bottom part of this I'll do in the black. Then you've got your gear lever, and then you've got your four-wheel drive shift gear here. And I think I'm going to paint that black and possibly red, or even yellow. Yeah, that's it. It's sort of gone in quite well, really. So let's talk about the battery. So this is the only place the battery makes sense for it to go, here. Obviously the battery will never be left in here, it'll always be taken out to charge it and then put in its fire safe. Now the little angle that I installed earlier, I'm hoping it's going to do its job. Yeah, so that's perfect. That keeps that battery nice and snug in there. So that's what I'm hoping, that this is where the battery is going to go. Just need to think about how I get access to this with the seats in place, but I'll worry about that later. One thing at a time. So happy with all of that. Just take that back out. And I think it's time now to go and clean all this up, prime it and paint it, and then get it installed. Okay, so slight change of plan. I was just tightening everything up on this, as you should do now we know that it fits. And I'm looking at the gap here, and it's perfectly aligned. I can't see any reason why that gap is what it is, and I'm not happy with that at all. So I've decided I'm going to weld this along here, over the gear housing and through here. So but the problem with that is, if I do that now, I will not be able to paint it until tomorrow. So because I'd have to leave the weld overnight really to get it painted. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to mix up some milliput and do the welding, and I'll do that on camera because there's not a huge amount of work involved, but I will show you. But what I will do though is I will galvanize this today, get that painted and galvanized, because I think this goes on with these two fixings here. I think I can get that fixed to the chassis ahead of putting it on here, so I can get that done today, get the welding done today, and then in the next session we'll get it painted and installed. All right, so I've mixed up my milliput. Taken about 5mm off of each one, rolled it into its little ball. Now I'm just going to roll this out. I know there are little devices you can buy to do this for you, to almost pipe it for you, but you know, I'm quite happy with this. I think this works all right. The idea is to try and get it as consistently the same gauge all the way through. This is going to be about 1.5mm in diameter, and then I'm just going to pop this along the edge. Using this tool just to feed it into the position where I want it. It's a bit thick, that. Sorry, it's a bit, the gap is a bit wider than the milliput. We'll need to make up some more, but no problem at all. Let's just get this one in position. So that's it, loosely in position. Now what I did do is I put these screws in here, these fixings in here, although the fuel tank itself hasn't been put on the back of this, sorry, on the back of this. But you can see the threaded ends of the fixings. So that's just so when I put the welding on, I don't have to worry about inadvertently capturing those fittings. What I will do now is I'm going to get some water. I'll add some water, here it is. And it's just so that the tool is a little bit wet, so it doesn't stick to the milliput. Now I'm just going to go along and just give that imprint of the weld. You can see that. By dampening the tool, it just helps stop the milliput sticking to the tool. I will go back over this in a minute. I don't know if you watched me build my little Hetzer, but there was a ton of welding on that. I might have to put another piece along that because that's quite then yeah, there was a ton of welding on the headset, but I really enjoyed doing that, and I think it really set it off. I said the only problem is I can't paint this now until this is fully cured. But as I said, I mean, this is one of the things I really love about this hobby, is that you may even have a plan in mind for your build session for that day, and then you know, as you handling it and moving it forward, and you can change and develop how you want to do it. I'm just going to trim that off. And when you're doing this mock welding, don't get too hung up on it, because you know, let's face it, welding, even for coded welders, is what it is. You know, it's done by hand, so it's never exactly perfect. But massive respect out there for anybody that does real welding. In my life, I've come across some top-end coded welders, and those guys are incredible. But this isn't anything like that. This is just mock welding. Now I will have to do another piece to go over the top of that, because I'm not happy the fact that the gap is wider than it I envisaged. So we'll just roll that out again. I thought I'd show you this. I know I've done some welding with you guys in the past, but it just I think it's important. I'd like to know in the comments actually whether you find this sort of thing helpful. I think it's kind of important to show you all the bits and pieces that you may want to do on a build like this. So that is just gonna take that and pop that on top of that. Can't believe that's actually perfect length for what I want it. Again, you don't have to do this. I just think that is really, that gap is incredible. We have to put more on that. I've just lost it down the gap. Slightly thicker piece here to go on that. Turn that up, push that back in there. Sorry, turn it upside down, pushing that back out. I think that looks a lot better. That's it, almost done. Quite pleased with that. Maybe you can see that. I just think it looks right. So just do that last piece along there. I'm glad I've done this. I think I would have regretted it. I think looking at it after it was painted, I think I'd have probably thought I should have welded it. But yeah, I'm glad I've done that. Just this last piece here. Actually put that bit, it's a bit too thin there. almost done. Yeah, I'm really pleased that I'm glad I've done that. As I said, I think I would have kicked myself if I'd have not done this, painted it and looked at all the gaps in it and thought, oh no, that just doesn't look right. Too late. So that's looking, in my opinion, a lot better. I'm happier with that. It's just a matter now waiting for it to cure and get that painted. So what I'll do now, while I'm waiting for that to cure, obviously I'm not going to get this painted in this session, but what we will do is I'll go off and galvanise this little fuel tank and we can get that installed onto the chassis. Okay, so while we're waiting for the galvanised paint to dry and the welding to dry, we can get on and do a couple of little jobs while that's going to help us. So I've already put a bit of a heat shrink on this one. I'm now going to do this one, and the idea is that I don't want the red and black cables to be visually seen or seen at all. So I'm going to try it. This is my idea, my plan, just to mask that by putting a black heat shrunk sleeve over it. So I'm just going to pop that there, go and get my hot air gun. Now we've got that, it's masked with the black, that's quite soft still, this has now gone off. So what I want to try and do is to try and dress this cable inside the bulkhead like that, and probably going to put another one on there because I don't want, I think being black, it'll probably just disappear into the look and feel of this. I'm just going to overlap that a little bit. Hoping that when this is all sort of hidden in the bulkhead and everything else, you won't see the cables. I think it's going to work. This is my way of doing it anyway. You guys probably come up with a different way. I'd love to know in the comments how you guys have dealt with this. I think that will work quite well, and it will allow me to glue that inside there, keeping it tight to the profile of the bulkhead, and then eventually sort of present itself through the little gap that we made in the floor. I think there's enough cable to reach and try and get it to a position in the middle here to connect up into the connector block and still have enough lead for it to go back into the receiver. I just want to do this. That'll be the one that maybe potentially ends up going through the floor plate. Do one more over this side. I just think that, you know, you go to the trouble of all the hard work and perseverance of trying to make your model look as close to the real thing as possible. What you don't want to do is end up looking at cables. So hopefully this is going to do the job. So now let's just see if that, by going through there, might need one more, because I don't want to see that red cable go through the floor. I'd rather just see the black, because I think that will just disappear. So yeah, I think one more is required. And I really do need to think about the main cabling itself, which is going to be a really crucial next step, I think. But I'm going to wait until I've got the floor done and installed. Then I'm going to go back and revisit the wiring and the electronics and everything else, because I want it to look, I need it to look good. I need to make sure it all fits, everything works in position with the battery. I think the ideal time to do that is when the floor's in, and spin the model upside down, so we can get a good look at the cabling, the roots, etc. I think that's going to work a lot better now. So that black will just go pass through the little gap we made in the floor. Likewise here, just gently sort of move that down, try not to damage that cable. That'll do the same thing, snake inside there, and then return back round through that little gap we've made in the floor. So I think that's as far as we can go today, because I had a look with the galvanized fuel tank and everything else. You do need to, I think I'm going to have to fix it to this first, and then the whole thing fixes into the Series 1 itself. So I think as far as I can go today is that, because we're now going to have to wait for paint to dry, and I could film that, but it will be hours, and it will be literally like watching paint dry. So I'm going to just have a bit of a tidy up, and I'll come straight back to camera. That's it for today, and I know it was quite a short video, but possibly mercifully short, and we didn't get as much done as I wanted to, but I'm glad I stopped where I did, because putting the weld joint on this has actually tidied it up a lot. And I know, strictly speaking, it's not accurate to what it would be, because it's normally bolted in place. However, didn't like the gap, and I'm really pleased that the weld joint has now covered that gap up. And in the next session I will get this painted. I managed to get some undercoat on it today, but I will get this painted and installed, and then we'll go on and install the little fuel tank now that it's all galvanized, looking really smart and tidy. And then once that's all installed, I will then go on and put in the pedals and the gear shifts, and we'll do a bit of detailing painting on those. And then I think when we get to that stage, I think it's really, really important to start sorting out the cabling. And the best time to do that is now, I think, before the windscreen's on and the doors and all the rest of it, because I'm going to spin the model over and I'm going to reconnect up the lighting cables to start with, do a battery test on that. Hopefully they still work. And then I will then look at where I'm going to put the power switch. It's a big old switch, and I need to work out exactly where it's going to go. And I've got a couple of ideas, but I need to mold those over, and hopefully by the time we come back I'll have an idea where I'm going to do that. And then we'll just sort out all the cabling underneath, ready for when it's completed. And I just think leaving it to right at the last minute, I think it's a mistake. So I'm going to get that done, and then we can move on to doing the doors and all the rest of it, and get this model getting towards finishing this amazing model. So I'll say thank you for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this session, please give me a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. We have a long way to go, believe it or not, on this Series 1 still. There's still quite a lot of work to do on it. And just another massive thank you to all of you who continue to support my channel, who've continued to subscribe, all your wonderful comments. I love corresponding with you guys, and I really do appreciate everything you say. I'll sign off finally by saying I'm Tony. Love building these amazing models, and I look forward to our next build session.